On today's show, Dave and I will play some cosine, no sign. We'll debate some of the hottest Leafs takes going on right now and just how close was Erik Karlsson to becoming a Maple Leaf. We'll tell you that and more all on today's Locked On Leafs podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day.
You're Locked On Maple Leafs, your daily podcast on the Toronto Maple Leafs. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hello and welcome into the August 9th edition of the Locked On Leafs podcast, a daily Maple Leafs-centric podcast hosted by myself, Mike DiStefano, and my co-host, Dave Morassutti. And this episode is brought to you by Birddogs. Go to birddogs.com/LockedOnNHL. Enter the promo code LockedOnNHL for a free white tech hat with any order. You won't want to take your Bird Dogs off, we promise you. And this is the hat to talk about, by the way, Dave. I got mine in the mail last week, I suppose. Really comfortable hat, I do have to say. Really comfortable hat. It's almost worth ordering yourself a pair of Bird Dogs just to get the free hat, if I do say so myself. What's going on, pal? What have you been up to?
Well, you do what normal people do in the summertime. There's no hockey. Go watch the movies. Just came back from actually watching the Barbie movie. Not a movie I expected. If you told me this year that I'd be watching a Barbie movie in the summertime, I would have laughed at you. And I'm sure some people are laughing at me right now. But I will say this. It was not what I expected.
What were you expecting?
Well, I mean, a movie like that, I was expecting a little less serious parts of it. I'm not going to give the movie away, obviously, if someone wants to go watch it. But I thought it was going to be flat out just like one of those like spoof movies, start to finish, where they were going to constantly, like, they were making jokes throughout the movie, but I did not expect any serious dialogue in this movie. And I also did not anticipate. I understand that there's been this craze about wearing pink if you're going to go and watch Barbie. I got there and no, I did not wear pink. I didn't wear pink. I think the closest I have is like a salmon colored shirt. I don't have like. So I got there and the lights had already gone down for the previews. Like finding parking at Yorkdale, if anyone knows Yorkdale Mall, crazy. It's really hard to find parking there. I get there, the lights are down. So watch the movie, the lights come on, and the blast of just paint color into my eyes was I like. When you like get like a flash of certain colors and your eyes kind of get disoriented a little bit there?
Yeah.
It took me some time to adjust to regular colors after that. Like there are some people who went decked out serious pink for this movie.
Oh yeah. I've seen it. I have seen the photos of all the people. Anytime someone goes, they got to take a pic next to the Barbie wearing their pink. It's become a phenomenon just to go and literally wear pink, get the pic, put it online, just to say, "Hey everyone, I was there. I saw Barbie. I wore pink." Yada yada yada. But good movie. Like, I mean, for what you,
I'd recommend going to watch it. Like if you're looking
Yeah.
for a comedy, like it's a good comedy. I think that movie's going to do really well box office wise. I mean,
Well, it already has. It's like almost $1 billion, hasn't it?
that theater, like, also, I haven't been inside of a packed movie theater in a really long time, and that theater was packed. I don't even think there was a single seat like empty in the theater.
I'm trying to think of the last movie that I saw in theaters. I can't, man. Like, I can't remember the last time I actually went to a movie theater. I'm trying to think if I've been since things opened up, or like it may be pre-pandemic. I remember I did go and see Patriots Day or Patriot Day, the one with Mark Wahlberg about the Boston
That
bombing.
was a long time ago.
Yeah, like I'm sure I did go to another movie or two after that. I just can't recall what I did. I know I did a couple of like drive-in movies. There's a drive-in in Niagara that I definitely went to a couple of times, but the actual theater itself, yeah, it's been some time. It's been some time since I've gone, but maybe I should go at some point this month. Like I said, it's not much hockey going on, so you got to find other ways to keep yourself busy and occupied. So you're doing that. I was going to card shows over the weekend. Did a couple of hockey card shows. I set up at one. on Saturday in St. Catharines, and made some big deals. And then I ended up going to one on Sunday where I bought some cards as a patron, and had some fun there. So I got to find some way to keep yourself occupied without the hockey. That being said, let's get to the hockey, Dave. I don't think people wanna listen to us talk about watching Barbie and doing card shows and whatnot.
Riveting content.
Yes, riveting stuff. But hey, it's the off season, man. There's not much going on in Leafland. Couple of things though, but we're gonna play some cosine no side to kind of talk about some of the things that have been going on over the course of the last couple of days. And if there's some time, we'll do today's puck doku as well. So let's start things off. We're gonna play some cosine no sign, as we mentioned. If you're new to the podcast, this is something that we do like to do quite often, but it's been a while since we've played the show. Probably a month or so since we've done a cosine no sign. I mean, obviously, I was away for a few weeks there, so it's been some time, but I love it. It's a lot of fun. Basically, the way it works is we're going to make statements to each other. If we agree with it, we're going to give it the cosine. If we disagree, we're going to no sign the statement. Dave, why don't you start things off for us?
Yeah, so there's been a lot of talk about William Nylander, his whole situation with the Leafs. Some are saying there's no way he's going to go to camp without a contract. My statement is the Toronto Maple Leafs will allow William Nylander to play the whole season without a contract extension done.
Oh, man. So he will play out the year without an extension. So not only like training camp, like you're thinking,
Yeah.
this guy's playing the whole season. Wow, that's a statement, man. That is a statement. You know what? I'm gonna no sign it. I don't think this is gonna happen, and it's pretty much because Brad Treliving went through this before with Johnny Gaudreau last year when he was with the Calgary Flames, and he didn't say he wasn't as strongly like upset by the situation, but Craig Conroy was. I don't know if you listened to Craig Conroy when he took over as GM in Calgary. Like he was pretty. He said that he was hurt by that, and he said he vowed that he would never let that happen again in Calgary. I would imagine there's a similar sentiment with Brad Treliving, although he didn't publicly come out and say, how much that situation sucked to have the superstar just walk for nothing. I would imagine that, it did clearly, and he doesn't want that to happen again. So I think, they're either going to find a way to get a deal done and get an extension in place before training camp. If not, dude, like a trade is very much on the table. Like I just don't think they can let this guy walk. I really think it would be extremely bad asset management if they just let William Nylander walk as a free agent. I know that you could be better off and maybe even win a Stanley Cup this year with him on the team as opposed to off the team if they trade him. But is that really what this team can afford to do? Let him walk? Because to me, it's extremely risky, man. So I'm going to no sign it. I think there either has to be a contract in place or trade discussions will probably soon come to the forefront here.
Yeah, I mean, I have a hard time believing that Brad Treliving will want to go through the stress of having to wonder what he's going to do with Nylander. But I'm curious of that. Do they think that Nylander just his heart's desire is to be in Toronto, and they're going to try to play on that as long as they can, and maybe make Nylander kind of, I wouldn't say give in, but make him sweat it out a little bit more. Like that's what I'm wondering. It wouldn't surprise me at some point we start to hear some trade rumors because the manager will try to leak that if they feel like the player wants to stay, but is being unreasonable with the contract demand.
Yeah, the thing with Willie is like, oh, can you get him uncomfortable? Like he showed last time he's more than willing to dig his feet in the ground and get what he feels he deserves, right? He did that the first time around when he took it all the way up until November 30th, right before finally signing that contract with the Maple Leafs. So I don't know if there's any way you can intimidate this guy. You just kind of have to negotiate. Now, the thing is, like, he's under contract next year, so he's going to play this season. It's not like he can sit out. Like we see happen in football, where guys sit out over contract disputes.
Yeah.
Doesn't happen in hockey, right? So he's going to play, but whether or not he's playing with a new deal or he's playing on as in a contract year, not lame duck is not usually the term used for players, but you know what I mean. I just, if I don't think he's going to care whether or not he's playing in that type of thing. I think honestly, there's more pressure on the Leafs to get it done than there is on Willie. So I don't know if you can push buttons on that guy. You're just gonna have to come up with a number that you can both agree to and live with. Whether or not they can do that, I don't know. I really, really don't know. You would hope that that's already been agreed to by now, but it doesn't seem like it, or else the contracts would be done, right?
No, that's fair. No, that's totally fair.
All right. Next one here, Dave. Cosign, no sign. The Leafs still need to add another goaltender to their ranks.
I was very close to making this mine, so I'm actually going to co-sign it. I think you need to add a veteran in some way, shape, or form. I think you look at the Marlies; they don't have that anyone with NHL experience in the minor leagues.
No, it's like Dennis Hildeby, Keith Petruzzelli. Like there's no one there. Dryden, was it Dryden Hunt or
Dryden McKay?
Dryden McKay. Like they sent back Artur Akhtiamov to the KHL. Like there's nobody with any amount of NHL experience. Like Joe Wall was that guy, and he's now the number 2. So Joe Wall has had some injury history in his career.
Mm-hmm.
Samsonov, spent a stint on the IL last year as well, right? So I think, I'm with you, man. I think they do need to add a third veteran goalie who's of the ilk of, like, I don't know if I want to say his name, but I know he's out there, like a Michael Hutchinson type of guy who is more of an AHL goalie, but could be serviceable in a pinch if he needs to come up and back up and possibly have to get into a game. Aaron Dell is another guy who the Leafs, signed a few years back to be that dude who he was claimed off waivers, I believe. Mm-hmm. Didn't last here very long. There's a couple of guys out there who fit the bill that maybe they could go and get.
Yeah, and there are teams like that will like. I think the best option will be get a guy on a PTO, CV if how Joseph Woll kind of deals with that competition, and then look, you sign a guy and you put him on waivers, and if he gets picked up, another team is going to have to carry another goaltender, or you get a guy you can throw into the Marlies like a Michael Hutchinson. Like that's a situation there. One team I'm curious about, the Montreal Canadiens, as part of that Erik Karlsson trade, they added Casey DeSmith.
Yeah,
they still got Jake Allen for 2 more years. Sam Montembeault is supposed to be the next goaltender for them, but then they also have Caden Primo, who would require waivers as well. Yeah, he's not waiver eligible, waiver exempt, I should say. He would need waivers to go down. So there are some teams that have that situation where they're going to have to figure out something with their goaltenders, but I think the best option right now will be to do a PTO and ride the wave a little bit there if you need to.
Yeah, PTO might be smart. Like Jaro Halak is another guy who potentially could be a third goalie or something like that. Like I can't remember the exact number, but there was something like 90 some odd goalies that were used last season, and there's only 30 teams, which means like on average, I think maybe it was like 88 or something like that. On average, a team used a third goalie, right? Like, so a third goalie is kind of necessary. And, like we mentioned,
the Leafs used 4 goaltenders last year. Let's not forget.
Yeah, they got to a point where
they had to sign. They had to sign. Yeah, they had to sign Petruzzelli because they would not have had an NHL goaltender to back up. I think it was Kaskasuo because both Murray.
Shalgren.
Was it? Sorry, why did I say Kassisu?
Kassisu was like 5 years
Oh,
ago.
good Lord have mercy. Ugh, yeah, Shalgren. That's how forgettable Shalgren sounds. Sorry about that, but like they had to get someone to back up Shalgren because both Murray and Samsonov were hurt.
Yeah.
You have to prepare for that situation.
Yeah. Like Brian Elliott's was a guy you mentioned. You brought him up on the podcast when I was away, how there might be some interest there potentially. Like he would kind of fit the bill as a third goalie as well. So we're both in agreement on that one. There's still one more goaltender that the Leafs who need to add, someone who's got some experience, who you could trust to play NHL games should injuries occur. Someone who could kind of be a 2B, I guess, to Wall and Samsonov. All right, let's take one quick break, Dave. When we get back, we'll continue playing cosign, no sign. But first, let me tell you guys about one of today's show sponsors. And of course, it's our good friends at Birddogs. Birddogs make you look good. Birddogs stretch khaki shorts are designed to fit slimmer through the thigh and leg, giving you a truly sculpted look. Birddogs shorts do the exact same thing as Lululemon, but fit way better. They fit better than regular shorts, and they're made of a stiff, restricted cotton. And Birddogs fixed the issue by inventing cloud knit fabric that makes it look just like a khaki. I wore these, Dave, when I was away, when I was walking the streets of Europe, and they were extremely, extremely comfortable. Birddogs uses anti-stink sweat wicking fabric that keeps you cool and dry all day long, which I needed in the 40-degree heat, or you might need when you're playing out on the golf course. So go to birddogs.com/LockedOnNHL or enter the promo code LockedOnNHL for a free white tech hat with your order, like seen right here. That's birddogs.com/LockedOnNHL or promo code LockedOnNHL for a free white tech hat. You won't want to take your Bird Dogs off. We promise. Check out Bird Dogs. Welcome back into the Locked On Leafs podcast. I'm Mike DiStefano with Dave Morassutti. Just a reminder that if you're enjoying this podcast and you haven't subscribed to us yet, we do post videos on YouTube regularly. We're at 3 days a week for now, and then come training camp, we'll be back to regular 5 days a week, Monday through Friday. We also post these wherever you get your audio from as well, iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, wherever you can get the shows. You'll find it. Locked On Leafs is actually looking, Dave, at where we stood in Canada for sports podcasts.
I look too.
Very surprised to see how high we were in the rankings, like 21st or something like that, and in the sports rankings podcast.
And then I looked hockey podcast. I believe we were 7th in Canada.
Craziness, and that's you guys listening to the show. That's on iTunes, so I don't even think that includes any of the other streaming listening platforms. So it's crazy. What we would really love, because it does actually help with those type of things, if you guys could write a review and leave a rating as well. 5 stars would be preferred on iTunes. That would also help promoting the show and get it to all the Leafs fans' eyeballs and earbuds. With that, let's keep going with our cosign, no sign segment here. Dave, you got the next one, pal.
All right. Well, the Pittsburgh Penguins made the biggest splash in terms of trades this offseason. So my statement is that the Pittsburgh Penguins will not be a playoff team at the end of the season.
Whoa! They'll not be a playoff team?
They will not be a playoff team.
No sign, dude. No sign. Are you kidding me?
I'm not kidding you.
Okay, so before I give you my rationale, I'd like to hear your rationale. Why do you think that this team still is not a playoff team? They only lost by 1 point last year.
Yeah.
1 point. You don't think that Karlsson's 1 point better?
I mean, does Karlsson solve the problems that they had last year?
Moving the puck, according to Kyle Dubas. He says moving the puck out of their own end was a big problem last year.
Yeah,
Karlsson moved the puck out of his end.
Yeah, it was also another big problem last year? Tristan Jarry.
Yeah, but if you get the puck out of the zone and you spend the whole time in the offensive end. Well, now Jari doesn't have, a whole lot to.
But it's a
You know what I
counter
mean?
that. Well, what if
Responsibilities.
Karlsson spends most of his time in his own end?
Well, that won't be great. That won't
Yeah,
be great.
right. Like you look at this blue line for the Penguins too. Yeah, Carlson Letang, that's pretty good. Then you get like to the Ryan Graves, Marcus Pettersson, Olivier Joseph. Like it's a blue line that just doesn't scream to me as a blue line that's gonna get a team to the playoffs, in my opinion. Right? You also have Gensel out to start. He's out for 12 weeks. He's so important to that team as well.
So really quickly, because I listened to Kyle Dubas's presser
Mhm.
yesterday to see what he had to say, and he did mention that there's a chance, and their projection right now, so leading up to Gensel's his timeline, because they have such a light schedule the first couple of weeks of the season, he might only actually miss 5 games. That's it.
Mm.
Only 5 games.
Yeah, and then if 5 games, that's not a lot, but it's also he's not going to be skating a lot, right? So it's going to take some time for him to get back up to speed once he is back. Also, this roster is very old.
Yes, I'll give you that.
It's
Yeah.
very old, and the Metropolitan Division is not an easy division. They're not even the top 3 team in the Metro, in my opinion. Like they're not better than the Rangers, they're not better than the Hurricanes, and they're definitely not better than the Devils. The Devils are going to be skating circles around that team this year, in my opinion. Like that's where it's going to be, and you can't tell me the Atlantic Division isn't going to see better teams. Like Buffalo, you say Pittsburgh missed by 1 point, Buffalo also missed by 1 point. Ottawa's another team that's going to really push for a playoff spot too. Like the competition doesn't get easier for Pittsburgh. And I just don't know if Karlsson was enough to make them a playoff team after how bad of a year they had.
I'll say this, Dave.
Go ahead.
I'm not going to change my answer because
Mhm.
if I had to bet today, I would bet that they do make it in a wild card spot. But you did make a lot of solid points, and it's not a guarantee that they make the playoffs.
No.
It certainly isn't a guarantee, but I just can't fathom another year without Sid in the postseason, man. Like I need to see it. I need to see it. I think that Karlsson adds a different dynamic, and they added Ryan Graves also to help that blue line. They still have a little bit of cap space, right? Like they added $3 million in cap by making this trade, so they might be able to do something else. Brian Rust, I think, is an underrated player. He's good. I like
Mhm.
him a lot, obviously. So there's some nice pieces that they have there that should be able to play well. Um, yeah, just for them to not make the playoffs, though, I think it would be so crappy. Like I know Dubas haters will be dancing on his grave if that
Mhm.
happens. Very clearly, like that we know that's going to be the case. Like if they miss the playoffs, you're going to have all these Dubas haters walking around like they're DX in the '90s, just to everyone, right? You know what I'm talking about.
Right.
Shawn Michaels, Triple H with the old point to the groinal area. That's what'll be happening if they miss the playoffs, and if Erik Karlsson, doesn't have that 100-point season you just had, and we look and we say maybe last year was just a flash in the pan. Look, these are all possible. They're possibilities. I believe to have a little bit more faith in that group. Jari's got to be better than he was a year ago. They paid him to be. He better be. That's for sure. So I think that they can make the playoffs in a wild card spot.
Okay. Yeah, I just don't see them being a top 3, and like the backup plan to Tristan Jarry is Alec Nedeljkovic.
Yeah,
Not
yeah, not
I,
the best. As former Pittsburgh Penguins goaltender would say, not the best. Hey, is Louis Domingue available? Louis Domingue would be a good pick too in Maple Leafs. See if he's available. If not, let's start a campaign to get Louis Domingue signed in Toronto. He'd be the perfect goaltender to be kind of the AHL veteran who could come up and play some NHL minutes if need be.
is he with
Is
the
he?
Rangers? Well, he was in the AHL last year.
Yeah. But where is he this year? Free agent?
He is not a free agent. He is with the Rangers for one more year.
Trade for him.
I mean, they got Jay Quick there now, so
Yeah. I mean, I guess they also probably need that third goalie. Like, that's what they're thinking.
they got quite a few goaltenders signed. I don't know how many of them are going to be playing in terms of the guys they got on ELCs, but it's a possibility. He'd be cheap too, $775,000.
Make it happen, Tree. Make it happen. Let's get Louis Domingue. Get the pork and broccoli dinners. Get it up here into Toronto. Good stuff. Good stuff. Well, mine was almost very similar, to be honest. My second one it had to do with.
I saw you look on your face, and I was just like, "Oh, we have a very."
Well, this is why, like, I was very much, but I'm gonna switch it around on the fly. Okay, on the fly, I would do this. Okay, we heard Kyle Dubas. Okay, if you listen to the press conference from Kyle Dubas, you have heard him say that the interest in Erik Karlsson dated back to his time with a former club, aka the Toronto Maple Leafs. David Morassutti. In a hypothetical world, if Kyle Dubas was still the general manager of the Toronto Maple Leafs, would Erik Karlsson would be a Maple Leaf instead of a Penguin today?
I'm gonna go no sign. I just
No.
think that contract is like you're at like they brought Klingberg in to do Karlsson based on what the cap projections would have been like. That's almost an extra, let's say $4 to $5 million on top of what Klingberg's making. Like that's a significant addition that you're trying to have to squeeze into that cap. And like I don't know what player you are trading out to make that salary work, because they had to trade out quite a bit of salary just to get Karlsson in.
Yeah.
We still have those like Granlunds, Petries, that guys that you can kind of trade away that are making decent coin that you can make that contract work, right?
Yeah, like, I would imagine players who could have been involved. Like the thing is,
TJ Brody would have been one of the players, I think, maybe
Brody, Cali Yarncrook, like throw Reeves in there to get him off the team.
Well, he wouldn't have been. I don't think if Kyle Dubas is here, I don't think Ryan Reeves is here. So
yeah, but I also don't think like they would. They probably maybe they don't go after Max Domi and that money's available. They don't go after Klingberg, so like that money's available. Like I just think the off season would have been completely different with Kyle Dubas at the helm than Brad Treliving, right?
Sure.
Like I just think that there would have been just a whole different theory on how to kind of rebuild this team. Could have been a lot different of a trade too. Like, I mean, Nylander could have been involved in a Karlsson deal, but also having some picks or some other players involved in that type of trade. It could have been done. I think that
it could have been done, but I think it would have been
creative guy.
really tough.
It would have been tough. Well, absolutely would have been tough. But I mean, it was tough for Pittsburgh. They were right up against the cap, just like the Maple Leafs. Right?
Yeah,
but they had some contracts, to your point, that they could easily shed, and it's no skin off their back. Like that's an easy. All right, get out of here, Petrie. Get out of here, Granlund. Like they were just shipping guys out who made a lot of money and replaced, 3 bad contracts with one good contract, or one good player who has that much money. It's similar to what the Canucks tried to do a couple of years ago with OEL, where they got rid of 3 bad contracts, but replaced it with one player who was supposed to be a good player, but like a serviceable player at the same cap hit. It just didn't work out for them. But I don't know. I think that it could have. I feel like Erik Karlsson would be a Leaf today if that would have happened.
The other thing I have to think about here is the contract extensions for Matthews, Marner, how that play into the fact that you're now adding Karlsson's cap hit. It's not just for the one season, right? It's the 4 seasons that you have him for.
It's cost certainty too, though. You know
True.
what I mean? Like if we're thinking that Nylander's, if he's looking for something between 9 and 9.5 million, right? Like okay, Karlsson's at 10, and odds are San Jose would have had to retain more if they were having this discussion with the Maple Leafs, right? Probably would have maybe retained another million to get it down to 9. And all of a sudden, okay, we know 9 million. That's about the same contract that they're looking to get Nylander for, right? So that, again, a purely hypothetical discussion and conversation, but I think it would have been interesting to see, like, in an alternate reality universe, would Karlsson be a Maple Leaf if Dubas was still here and in charge of what happens?
I do think the one thing that might make me reconsider my position is that it seems like Dubas was more willing to make a big move involving the core four, and that
Yes.
probably would have been the move he would have done, which
Well,
is bringing
he flat out said the interest in Erik Karlsson stems back to my time as Maple Leafs general manager. He wanted to bring Erik Karlsson to Toronto. Like he flat out said today that he wanted to do that. There was interest there. They just couldn't figure out how to make it happen yet. Could they have done it once the offseason started and they know more so what's happening with their cap structure? Possibly something could have been done at that point. But, instead they say sayonara to Kyle Dubas. A week later, he pops up in Pittsburgh. And a couple months later, he brings in 102-point Norris winning defenseman Erik Karlsson to join Sidney Crosby and Geno Malkin and Chris Letang. And we'll see what that team's got in store. There's a lot of firepower, that's for sure. But to your point earlier, aging group. So we'll see, if they can defy Father Time and have some success. All right, man. Good stuff. Solid stuff as always. Do we want to do a quick puck doku today, or do we want to maybe do it on the next show?
and we'll save it for the next show. This one here doesn't have like if there was a Leafs related block here, I would have said yes, but there isn't. So I think we can skip for today.
All right. So we'll come back. We'll do it Friday. Ooh, good point. Fan Friday on Friday. We missed last week. So we got to get someone on the show this week. If you are interested in joining us for Fan Friday, let us know in the comment section down below. Reach out to one of us on Instagram or on Twitter.
I will say before you go there, I did have someone reach out. We're gonna work on the details. So if we can get a second fan in, we can try. It doesn't mean we're gonna bring one guy. We can probably bring two in if we can.
And we can get a list going too, though, because we're trying to do this every Friday going forward, right? So, let's just get some people into the fold so that we can start to kind of make a list and a schedule for, when we want to get fans in here. So, let us know. Reach out to us on Instagram or Twitter at Leafs Lunch or at Locked On Leafs on Twitter. At Mickey_Canuck is myself. At D_Morassutti is Dave. Let us know if you're interested. And we'll try and get you on the pod at some Friday over the next few weeks here as we continue that series. But that'll do it for us here today on the podcast. I'd like to thank you all for listening and supporting the show. You can subscribe to the Locked On Leafs podcast on all podcasting platforms, also up on YouTube, and you'll receive daily Leafs content. If you enjoyed this video or this podcast, please leave a like and a comment or review of the podcast. We'll be back with another episode for you guys on Friday. But until then, keep locked right here on Locked On Leafs.